Welcome back to Classic Cultures. As you guys can see, I'm going to be doing my top 25 power rankings post week 2. Another solo video that I decided to do, kind of a series that I'm going to be doing once a week for you guys. Just giving my top 25 teams, my personal top 25 teams. After each week has nothing to do with the AP poll or the college football playoff rankings. Just going to be Steven's rankings. I think it's pretty fun to kind of show you guys what I think of certain teams. My kind of, I guess, power rankings throughout the year as we go on. But we're going to get right into it. Well, before we get into it, those of you guys who are new around here, please do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload. We post college football every single day. The Discord link is in the description below, as well as the Pick'em link is down there as well. It's been super fun growing this channel. We still have the giveaway coming out of 1,000 subscribers, giving away a signed Heisman jersey. So those of you guys who are new around here, be sure to subscribe so you have a chance to do that, to win that jersey. But nonetheless, let's get right into it. First team that we're going to talk about today is the 25th ranked Washington State Cougars. So I think this team has to be on here after their 9-point victory at home against Wisconsin. I'm not sure what the line was heading into this game. They were a 5-point underdog, ended up covering. Those of you guys who were here in the live show, the preview show, I did call this game. I thought they were going to win by 10. They ended up winning by 9. So big win for Washington State and Cam Ward. Cam Ward looked amazing. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 40 yards on the ground. Next week, Washington State plays North Colorado, and then they open up Pac-12 play against Oregon State at home on the 23rd, which is going to be able to be their first real test outside of Wisconsin. Pac-12 football is really good this year, so I look forward to seeing how they fare in that game. But this is where I have them at number 25. I think this is their first time being ranked since the 2018 or 2019 season. So almost 4 or 5 seasons. So nice to see Washington State get some love. I believe they're ranked in the AP as well, but they're my 25th ranked team. 24 Clemson. As you guys can see, I had them at 25 last week. In the AP, they did fall out. I still think they're a top 25 team. I don't think Iowa is a better team than Clemson. We just won by 50 points. Iowa hasn't looked good this year either. Obviously, Clemson lost to Duke. But I just think that Clemson is still a top 25 team. You can call it biased if you want. I think that if we were to go play against another top team, we're going to compete. We obviously have Florida. We obviously have Florida State in a week and a half, so we'll be able to kind of measure ourselves. But what happens if Clemson wins that game? Are we top 22, top 20? Are we top 10? Kind of hard to gauge how they're going to do that, especially with Florida State probably being the best win of the year so far if Clemson's able to get that done. So kind of interesting, some good storylines to kind of project. But this is where I have them. Not going to talk too much about my Tigers, but I have them at 24. 23, UCLA. Another team that kind of looks really good with a true freshman quarterback and Dante Moore. Let me see. I think last week he threw for 3 touchdowns and like 300 yards. I'm not sure who they played against, but he had a big game. I like them cracking the top 25 in the AP poll as well as mine. And the AP poll, the Pac-12 has 8 top 25 teams, the most of any conference. Like my dad and I have been saying all season long, all preview, they have the best football this year. And I know SEC fans and Big Ten fans don't like when we say that, but I mean, proof is in the pudding. I think they've only lost 2 or 3 games in 2 weeks. They were undefeated after week 1, so good showing by the Pac-12 so far. And I have UCLA at 23. Number 22, Miami. Not ranked in my initial rankings that I made. Big win over A&M, 15-point win at home. Big for their program and Mario Cristobal. I fully expect this team to be players as far as the ACC title. I know they play Clemson later in the year. They still play North Carolina. They play NC State. They play Florida State later, and they play Louisville. They have a tough schedule for sure. I don't think they go undefeated. They may finish 9-3, 10-2. But, I mean, based on how they look against A&M, a tough A&M team, you got to like what you see if you're a Miami fan. This week they play Bethune, and then they play Temple. So they're probably going to start off the season 4-0 in the top 20 or so in the AP. I like them at 22. Got to show me a little bit more. But their next test is going to be against North Carolina on October 14th. So realistically, they're going to be 5-0 probably heading into that game. So, yeah, you're looking at a top 20 team in Miami. I'm on the AP at least, top 20, top 15. So Miami's in a good position right now. Looking forward to see how their season shakes out. But moving on to the next one, you have Duke. I had them at 22 last week. They're 21 for me. They were a little slow starting in that game this week against, I think it was FAU, if I'm not mistaken. Who did they play this week, y'all? They played Lafayette. 42-7 was the final. Riley Leonard, he didn't look amazing. 130 yards passing, 1 touchdown. Really, turnovers helped them win that game. But, I mean, it was 21-7 at half, so it was pretty close, and they pulled away late. But they got the job done nonetheless. This week, Duke takes on Northwestern. The next test is going to be September 30th at Notre Dame. I'm really excited for that game because we're going to be able to see how Notre Dame shakes up against Duke compared to Clemson. I expect them to have a better showing than Clemson did. Clemson losing 28-7, but I'm still excited to watch that game. At number 20, we got Colorado. So Colorado was number 24 for me last week. Big win at Nebraska. I know a lot of people think Nebraska sucks. It wasn't a big win. I still think it's a big win for Colorado. They're a 1-11 team last year. So I like that win for Deion and Shadur and Travis Hunter. I think I've been on record saying I think they're going to go 4-8. I don't see them going 4-8 now. Now I know me and my dad have a bet that if they're 8-4, I'm going to buy him a jersey. If they're 7-5, he has to buy me one. I don't think they go 8-4. They still have to play Colorado. They have to play USC. They got to play UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. So their last, 5 games, or really, their last 5 games are tough. And then they have a 2-game rough skid against Oregon and USC. So I still think they go 5-7, maybe 6-6. I think that would be ideal. But they've already impressed and they've already exceeded expectations, in my opinion. I don't think anybody had them 2-0. They're going to blast Colorado State on game day, and they play Oregon on the 23rd. The 23rd is a giant slate of football, so that's going to be another good game that day. But I think Colorado at 20 is good. Very good spot for them. Number 19, I had North Carolina. Another team that didn't look very good this week. Won in double overtime, I believe, to Appalachian State. Did not look very good defensively after having a good defensive stand and showcase against South Carolina in week 1. Kind of reverted back to how they were last year. But I think at the end of the day, they got the job done. But I did move them back 2 spots because of that showing. And I think a couple of other teams did a little bit better than them this past week. So I did shuffle them around a bit. Number 18, we have Ole Miss. Those of you guys may think that win over Tulane was not a big win. That is a giant win. Tulane beat USC last year. Tulane is a good football team. Obviously, they were without Michael Pratt. 37-20 score. Ole Miss won. I don't think that score is indicative of what happened. It was a last-second touchdown, a field goal. So really, it was 27-20, and then 10 points came in garbage time. But still a big win for Ole Miss. I think Tulane finished this season 11-1 with the conference championship. But Ole Miss, that's still a good win for them because Tulane's going to finish in the top 25 at the end of the year. So Ole Miss is still going to have that on their resume. So yeah, I like the way they looked. I like the way Jackson Dart looked. I liked Quinshad Junkins in that game. He kind of took over in the second half. So this team is not a team to look over by any means. For if you're talking about other SEC opponents, this is going to be a tough out for anybody any given Saturday. So I like them at 18. I think they're my 18th best team so far. 17, you got Kansas State. Another team that didn't play anybody this week, but they got the job done. 45-0 against Southeast Missouri, and then 42-13 against Troy. You can't knock them for the talent they're playing against. They're getting the job done. This week they play Mizzou, their toughest opponent to date. Both teams 2-0. Kansas State is on the road, a 5-point favorite, so I'm looking forward to see how they do. And then we can kind of judge them a little bit better. But I did move them back 2 spots, just because the other teams I think did a little bit better than them. One of those other teams being in Oregon State. Oregon State looked amazing again. This team is scary with DJU at the helm. I think that like I said, he was the missing piece. Week 1, I believe they won like 38-3 or 42-17. The second week against UC Davis, 55-7. They play SDSU this week, 24.5 favorite right now. Then they play Washington State next week. We already talked about Washington State. Again, that September 23rd matchup, or that weekend, is going to be the real first good weekend of college football, and I'm looking forward to that. 2 ranked matchups in the Pac-12. You get one in the ACC. You get one in the SEC. I'm not sure if you got one in the. You got Notre Dame, Ohio State. So a top 10 matchup there. So just a lot of good football coming in about 10 days or so. 11 days. So I'm excited for that. But I got Oregon State here. They look really good. This is looking like a 10-win team, guys, and a team to be reckoned with in the Pac-12. Moving on to my next team, number 15, Oklahoma. Sooners look like a good team, guys. I think a lot of pressure gets put on Venables to kind of live up to that Oklahoma hype, which is fine. But let's let them settle in. Let them get some of his recruits. We know that Lincoln Riley took a lot of the guys with him to USC, so we had a bad season last year. They won 28-11 against SMU. They were on upset alert early in the game, but they ended up pulling away a little bit late. They played Tulsa this week. They're a 28-point favorite on the road. I expect them to do really good in that game. I think this team is going to be 5-0 heading into the Red River rivalry. It is going to be a really close game this year. I do have Oklahoma winning that game. Oklahoma is my Big 12 champion. That is who I'm predicting to win the Big 12. Texas obviously looked amazing against Alabama. No knock to them. But I think by that point in the season, We're talking about a month from now. I think Oklahoma's going to be humming with Dylan Gabriel. I really like this team. Defensively, they looked better this year, albeit they have played SMU and Arkansas State. So we'll be able to get a little bit of a better understanding when they play Cincinnati and Iowa State before that Texas matchup. But I think this team is really good. I think Dylan Gabriel is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. And I like Brett Venables, obviously, I think is one of the best defensive minds in college football. So I like this team at 15. Number 14, we have LSU, obviously coming off that heartbreaking loss to Florida State in week 1 in blowout fashion in front of the entire country to see. They respond with a 62-point win over Grambling. Not going to, give too much credit to them because it is Grambling, but Daniels had 5 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors caught a touchdown as well. They ran the ball really well in this game. Their next test is going to be against Mississippi State this week. 10-point favorite on the road. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. This is one of the better matchups of week 3. The 9 a.m. game for Pacific time, 12 noon Eastern. So the 9 a.m. that looks like the game to watch at the 9 a.m. I haven't looked at the other ones, but I'm one to keep an eye on for sure. But this is where I have LSU. I have them staying in the same spot I had them last week just because it's Grambling. You can't really move them too much, but they took care of business. Next team, I have Oregon. Survived a scare at Texas Tech. Those of you guys who watched that game, they had a pick 6 with like 30 seconds left or something crazy. So that score, it was 31-30. Texas Tech had the ball, and they, I think, either caught a scoop and score or pick 6. So this score is not indicative. Yeah, it was a 45-yard interception return for touchdown with 35 seconds left. So this game could have swung the complete other way. So they survived this game. I didn't think this game was going to be that close. Obviously, there was upset watches, throughout college football, and I didn't expect this one to be one. I actually had them winning by like 2 touchdowns. So I'm very surprised that they played kind of down to their opponent this week. Makes me concerned for other Pac-12 opponents for sure. So I had them staying at 13 as well. Tennessee, I did have them move back from 11 to 12. I don't think they looked very good this week against Austin Peay. Kind of weird. I expected Joe Milton to have a better season. He had 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. I just don't think it's as explosive as last year. Last year, we saw Hendon Hooker throwing for 400 yards, 300 yards weekly. The first 2 weeks, Joe Milton has not looked that great. He was my, sleeper Heisman pick for this season, and it's not looking like that's going to come into fruition. Hopefully, he can kind of clean things up before they have to travel to, I guess you would say, Alabama on the 21st of October. They play Florida this week. They're only a 6.5-point favorite in the Swamp, so that is a trap game for Tennessee. I probably still favor them, but this game is not to be slept on by any means if you're a Tennessee fan. I think this game is going to be a barn burner. They play UTSA the week after, then South Carolina, and then A&M. Luckily, they don't play Georgia until November 18th, so they can kind of clean some stuff up. But they're going to have to start, getting things together before SEC play starts. And, unfortunately, that starts this week. So we'll have to see how Tennessee looks and Joe Milton looks against a SEC defense. But I do have them moving back 1 spot to 12. My next team, guys, I have Alabama at 11. Alabama fans, you might not like that, but at the end of the day, you did lose by 10 at home to a Texas team. Jalen Milroe threw for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 terrible interceptions. He obviously had that one bomb, across the field on that deep post. Quinn Ewers looked amazing against you guys. So I think there's question marks on the defensive side of the ball as well as the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, this week, Alabama plays USF, South Florida. They're going to blast them. Then they host Ole Miss, and Ole Miss looked really good against Tulane. We already talked about them. So I do have Alabama at 11. They're obviously still a force to be reckoned with, but after that loss to Texas, you kind of have to question, how many losses is this team going to take this year? You still have to play, like I said, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, and then the Iron Bowl at the end of the year. This is probably looking like a 10-2 type team, 9-3 at the worst. I'd be very surprised if Alabama were to be able to win out, especially because, Texas is a really good team, but so is Tennessee and LSU. So it's going to be kind of interesting. It wouldn't be the end of the world if they did it because, if anybody can do it, it's Nick Saban. But, how sloppy they played, it's going to be tough. I would say that it's going to be tough. But Nick Saban is the one coach that I would trust to kind of right the ship for sure. But I do have Alabama at 11. At number 10, this is where I have Utah. So Utah survived another scare. Another one of those teams who was able to kind of survive a Big 12 opponent in Baylor. They scored in like the last minute as well. 17 seconds they scored to kind of put that game away. They need Cam Rising back, you guys. I know Nate Johnson is able to kind of, hold down for now, but he only had 80 yards of passing. 80 passing yards. I'm sorry. I think without Cam Rising, this team is not a Pac-12 title contender. This week they take on Weber State, so it's not going to matter then. But then they host UCLA on the 23rd, so another ranked Pac-12 matchup. So we have 3 ranked Pac-12 matchups in week 5, or week 4. I'm sorry. So yeah, they play UCLA on week 4, and then Oregon State week 5, and then week 7 they host, or they go to USC, and then they host Oregon. So in 4 out of 5 weeks they play ranked Pac-12 teams. And then they play Washington and Colorado at the end of the year. This team has a tough schedule, probably one of the tougher schedules in college football. They're going to have to get Cam Rising back if they want any chance to, complete that three-peat in the Pac-12. But nonetheless, I moved them back 1 spot just because they barely survived to Baylor, and Baylor just came off of a horrendous loss last week, so I did move them back 1 spot. Moving on, number 9. This is where I have Notre Dame. I have them moving up 3 spots. I've been on record saying if they were able to, dominate NC State, I'm going to go ahead and move them up my rankings, because this is a team that played 2, lower opponents and took care of business. And this week they took care of business against a very stout defense in NC State. Albeit they did pull away late. It was a 17-7 ball game at halftime. They scored 21 points in the second half. In the fourth quarter. It was 24-17 at the end of the third. And they pulled away late. So another one of those scores that doesn't really, tell how the game went. But when you're talking about a team total standpoint, they outgained NC State by over 100 yards. They ran the ball 100 yards more. They had less turnovers, obviously. They had more penalties, which is kind of odd to win by 21 with more penalties. But just another one of those games where they got the job done. Like I said, this week they play against Central Michigan, and then they host Ohio State next week. Another one of those September 23rd matchups in week 4. Going to be a great week of football, but I do have Notre Dame at 9. Number 8, I have Penn State here. I have them staying stagnant here. They played Delaware. Not too much to say about this game. Drew Law, another 200-yard game with a touchdown. I just think that this team, we're not going to know much about them until they play Illinois this week. They're a 14-point favorite. I'm on the road. I think that if they're able to blow them out, it's going to be completely different conversation we're having about Penn State. But they have them at number 8. Number 7, I have Washington here. I'm very high on Washington. So is my dad. Big win for Washington this week over Tulsa, 43-10. Penix, another 400-yard and 3-touchdown performance. This receiving core is absolutely loaded. I let them here at 7, though, just because a couple of other teams that were ahead of them played tougher opponents or, similar opponents. So I didn't want to jump Washington ahead. We're going to be able to start moving teams around once the schedule gets a little bit more tough. But I do have them at number 7 as my 7th-ranked team this year. At 6, I have Ohio State. I had them moving back one spot. Obviously, they played against Youngstown State, won 35-7. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 160 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, guys. First quarter. But again, winning by 28 to a very less opponent, Youngstown State. They should have won by 50. So that's why I moved them back 1 spot. Not much to say here. Obviously, they play Notre Dame here in a couple weeks. Like I said, we're going to be able to tell more about those teams then. Number 5, I have USC. So I have Ohio State and USC flipping spots. USC played a lower opponent as well in Stanford, but they looked dominant in that game. Caleb Williams, 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think it was 49-3 at the end of the first half. It was 49-3 at the end of the first half. So they could have put up 100 if they wanted to. All their backups were in the entire second half. So hard to say. I think they were just so dominant in this game. I had to move them over Ohio State. So that's why I had them at 5. Number 4, this is where I have Texas. Obviously, big win over Alabama this week. I was a vocal non-believer in Texas. I'm not going to say changed my mind, but they've definitely proved me wrong as far as being able to kind of really control that game from halftime on against Alabama. They won by 10, obviously, scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. On the road at Bryant-Denny is not easy to do. Rabid fans, over 100,000 fans here, and they silenced them. So very interesting to see how Texas looks throughout the remainder of the year. Could they go undefeated? Yes. Based on what we saw. I don't think it's going to happen because the Big 12 is, very evened out, I guess you would say, throughout all of the teams. There's a lot of good teams in the Big 12 that can compete, high-powered offenses. So I do think they drop a game. I don't think there's any undefeated teams in the Big 12 this year. I don't think there's any undefeated teams in the Pac-12 either. So we'll just have to see, but I like Texas here at 4, jumping up 6 spots. Florida State at 3. So they stayed the same. I think they played a very bottom tier opponent as well. They played against Southern Miss, won by 53 points. Not much to say about them. Trey Benson had 3 touchdowns rushing. So yeah, they looked good. This week they play Boston College. So a tougher defense, but they are favored by 25.5 points. And then they go on the road to Clemson, which is going to be a big game next week on the 23rd, as well as all those games we've been talking about. Number 2, we have Michigan staying the same. Another one of those teams that, hasn't really played anybody yet, but they're penciled at number 2 because they were always at number 2. And although they only won 35-7, they still controlled the game throughout. So I still had them at my number 2 team. Still feel like they're the most complete team in college football. So I couldn't really move them back based on, a 28-point win over the UNLV Rebels. At number 1, still standing strong. Number 1, Georgia Bulldogs. I'd be remiss if I moved them. I understand that they played Ball State. They won by 42. Another one of those situations where you can't knock them for who they're playing. They play South Carolina this week. If they win by 30 against South Carolina, then they're proving that they're deserving of the number 1 spot. Very interesting to see how they look against Tennessee, obviously, Florida, South Carolina, Ole Miss later in the year. But I think this is a 12-0 team. I mean, 11-1 at worst, but I just don't see them losing, guys, until the playoff time comes, or if they lose to, an Alabama or an LSU in the conference championship game. But this team is picking up right where they left off. I mean, 93 points to 10, 93 to 10 scoring the first 2 weeks, obviously against lesser opponents we're going to see this week in their first SEC matchup. But yeah, I still have them number 1. That is my top 25 for week 2, or actually post week 2, I would say. A little bit of movement here and there, but I'm really looking forward to doing this after week 4 when all those games conclude. Just so many ranked matchups as of right now. It's going to be really fun. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of my rankings. What are your rankings? Give me your top 25 down below. Join the Discord. The link is in the description, as well as joining the pickem that's there as well. And make sure you guys subscribe. Like I said, it's completely free. We've been growing this channel for about 3 months now, college football wise. We love to talk with you guys. We love to debate with you guys and have discussions regarding college football. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we are giving away that signed Heisman jersey. We've been stagnant between 930 and 940. We kind of hit like this weird plateau. So please share this to your friends and family. Bring a friend to the live show. The next live show is going to be Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday. We're going to be previewing week 3 college football. Me and my dad. My dad will be here for that show. So please show up, show out, bring a friend. Tell your friend to bring a friend. Let's get a lot of people in the live show this week so we can have some good college football dialogue. Some good debates and discussions. But we will see you guys tomorrow at tomorrow's video. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace out.